A great finish set up here at the Sandown 500 of 1996. The pace car has squeezed the leaders together. Loud, Seaton, Brock, Longhurst, Perkins, all restarting the race now. Let's go back to the pits.
And Greg Murphy, after initial elation that you were almost a lap up on second place, is now back to start to nose to tail.
Yeah, it's made for a very interesting end run to the finish, actually, having that pace car out. We had a really big lead and everything was going great. And now Glenn's actually less than a second behind us, so we were thinking maybe it's going to be good, but he actually, when I came in the pits, he was just sitting in front of me, so it didn't help.
Have you given the car back to Lowndes in good condition?
Yeah, the car's going great. It's just exactly the same as it was in the first stint. I think when Craig was driving, it feels fantastic.
Look at that. Glenn Seaton has just taken the lead in the Sandown 500 in a tremendous move down the back straight to take the lead now for the first time from Greg Lowndes. What a great move, Jeff Brabham.
It certainly was. He was just in the right place there. It looked like Craig Lowndes got a little aggressive there, trying to force his way through, got cut off, and Glenn Seaton just said, see you later, and swung around the outside.
Well, now this could give Seaton a break that he's been looking for all race. We've seen good speed from the car. And handed to David Parsons, who's done a tremendous job, but the safety car rules have really played into his hands and handicapped race leader Lowndes.
Yeah, certainly, and watching the race up to now, the leaders have had a lot of trouble passing people, so if Glenn Seaton can get in front, he could well make things very difficult for Crowd Lowndes. There's one engine lets go there, looks like the fault in the car. That's a real shame because he was going very well.
Doing very well. The battle certainly further on, is back further on too between Brock, Longhurst and Perkins, so the race is not over in terms of the whole top five. Just not this guy in front, Glenn Seaton in the Ford credit car, doing a tremendous job. He's pulled out 2 or 3 car lengths on Lowndes already, and great view up the back straight. This will give you an idea of the difference between the Ford and the Commodore, and it's certainly really handicapped Lowndes.
It certainly has. It's going to make a great race now because, I think Lowndes has a little bit quicker car than Glenn, but once he gets up on front, I think he's going to have a hard job getting past.
Oh, you can see how Lowndes there locks up the brake. And look at Brock just back behind Lowndes in 3rd spot. So this is the battle between 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and Longhurst, remember, is a lap down, so you're looking at the battle between 1st, 2nd and 3rd, but the battle on the track, of course, will continue right throughout the rest of this field. Seaton again opening up a nice bumper to Craig Lowndes. Brock not that far behind.
No, don't count Peter out of this because that car's been behind the whole race, has been clawing its way back. Now it's finally got its break, and he's been going, particularly with Mazira in the car, as fast as any other car out there. So certainly these 3 have been the class of the field, and they've all closed up. It's going to be a sprint race to the finish.
We'll watch the lap times. Seaton, the fastest man on the track now, 1:14.2. Lowndes a 1:14.5. Brock a 1:15 dead. We'll watch the lap times over the next 2 or 3 laps. You're on the 120th lap, so only 41 laps to go. Second round of pit stops has just been completed. Most of the guys came in while the safety car was out to take advantage of that. And now Glenn Seaton out in the fresh air, up on the curbs, calm and relaxed as he just locks up a wheel, going through XR corner.
And I think Glenn feels he might have a shot to win the race now, and he's going to be really pumped up. So that these 3 are not going to hold back in any way, shape or form.
He'd be very keen to do well this weekend, given the fact that he led Bathurst until the 9th lap last year, until a broken valve spring took him out. This is the same car that he raced at Bathurst last year. 3rd in the Australian Touring Car Championship this year behind Lowndes and Bow. 2nd last year with Alan Grice in this race, in this car. 240 kilometres per hour from the Laser Technology speed gun.
And they're picking up the lap speed too, because both Seaton and Lowndes are in the 13s that lap, which is one of the quickest laps we've had all throughout the race. So it's going to be a sprint to the finish, and hopefully both the cars are in good shape. They've been driven pretty hard through the whole race, but they all look like they've still got a very good car underneath them, and should be interesting to see what happens.
So Lowndes 0.4 of a second closer this lap around. Can he close the gap over the next 2 or 3 laps? Seaton running brand new John Sidney engines for the first time, split with his father Bo, who for many years has been involved in his son's motor racing. Barry Seaton has now joined the Tony Longhurst team. John Sidney now building engines for the Seaton team. 3 new engines for Sandown, 630 horsepower they're claiming, a lot more reliability. And team manager Tony Murphy would be extremely happy with the position this car's in now.
Oh, absolutely, and you know, I think this team's done a very good job. They've shown that they're the only ones really that can run with the Holden dealer team, and they're in very good shape for Bathurst, and that's the race that they dearly want to win.
Good effort too from Ashby to Reed to be in the top 10, 9th spot in the Lansville Smash Repairs Commodore. They'd nearly be the best of the privateers actually, because Faulkner had an engine problem, although Stephen Johnson is well up there too in 7th spot. But this is your race leader, the Sandown 500, as we wind down the last 40 odd laps. And Lowndes again closer this time.
Yeah, Lowndes going very fast. He just did a 12.9, which I think must be the quickest lap of the race. So he's definitely still the fastest guy out there. But as we've seen before, when the leaders get together, it's been difficult for them to pass. You know, Mazira caught Parsons very quickly, but then stayed behind him for many, many laps. In fact, never actually got past him again. So if Ben Seaton can keep his line, not make any mistakes, it's going to be very interesting.
Locking up that left-hand front just about every time as he comes around XR corner, and that allowed again as Lowndes to close up closer to the back of the Ford Credit Falcon. It's a real Ford versus Commodore battle. Ford's won this race 9 times, and Commodore Holden have won it 12 times. Down the main straight they go, 240 k's plus, down to John Smiles.
Lap was in fact the fastest of the race. Before that, the fastest lap later Thomas Mazera, but it appears that the penalty for that lap might be that your brakes have started to really go off, Thomas.
Well, it was a problem as soon as I got in. Unfortunately, we got a pad knockoff somewhere, and every time before I go on the brakes, I have to pump the pedal with the left foot. Then it's getting a bit hard. Like if you're driving by yourself, no one around, it's okay. But in a race situation with other car, it's getting a bit difficult.
So Brock's chances of challenging for the lead?
I don't think so. No. I think I think we should settle where we are at the moment.
Well, I don't know that Peter Brock would agree with you, Thomas, because he's not one to give up. He's 4 seconds off the lead, and we're in the last hours of this Sandown 500. And what would you do, Jeff?
Well, it's not much you can do, because if you've got a brake problem, you're going to have to drive around that. And that explains why Mazira caught Parsons so easily, but then was unable really to make a move on him. And when you've got a brake problem like that, when you've got this many laps to go, you've really just got to cool it, you know, just consolidate your position and make sure you try and bring the car home. They've got a lap up on the rest of the field, so you know, Peter can take it fairly easy from now and come home in 3rd place.
Now look at Lowndes, how close he is to Seaton. This is almost a replay of last year. Remember, Lowndes passed Seaton on the 7th lap and ended up in the sand. We're now 124 laps down almost, and the battle for 1st and 2nd in this race is well and truly happening at the front of this field. Lowndes close to Seaton now in the Ford Credit Falcon. Expect to see a move this lap or next. Up the back straight they go.
Yeah, I think Lowndes has definitely got the quicker car, and there's plenty of laps to go yet. He doesn't have to do it straight away, and if he just plays it cool, just picks his moments, slips on by and get on and try and win the race, that would be the best thing. But things get a bit excited out there, and sometimes it doesn't always go to plan, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. And Brock's gone off, so he's definitely got a brake problem.
You can just see in the back there, Brock has gone off, ran straight off at XR corner, didn't quite make the sand trap. And obviously the brakes that Thomas was talking about are really causing Brock problems.
That's
now.
right. I think Peter would be glad to get out of town from this weekend. He's certainly had a few problems.
Stalled the car. Starts it up again, selects first gear. Now that'll push, of course, Brock further down. Whether he can maintain his 3rd spot, Longhurst being 4th and a lap down, we'll let you know. But this is still a battle for 1st and 2nd. Seaton still holding out Lowndes. Lowndes a lot more mature after going overseas in a test session with Tom Walkinshaw Racing in England in the last 2 or 3 weeks, only just back. Goes back again to Europe after Bathurst and hopefully to secure a Formula 3000 drive next year. And no doubt, Jeff, that experience that he's had overseas will no doubt even make him more mature after the Touring Car Championship and coming up to these long-distance races.
Well, you know, Craig's on a roll right now. He's got himself into a fantastic situation. He cleaned up, and there's Peter Brock, picture of him going off into the sand trap. Not nearly as far as he did yesterday, but still, it's going to cause him a problem for the rest of the race, because he has got a good lead, but if you've got brakes failing, believe me, it's not a nice place to be.
So back with the race leaders as they come up to lap Dick Johnson and John Bowe in their Falcon. This is Ford versus Commodore at its best here at Sandown. We've seen some tremendous battles over the years, and look at Lowndes now. Looking down the inside, looking down the outside. The lap car, of course, could well come into play here. Lowndes pushing the Commodore hard, bouncing through the corner there.
Absolutely. I'm sure Glenn wants to get past the Falcon in front as quickly as possible without letting Lowndes through, but it doesn't appear that Bowes going to just pull over and let him by. They get up alongside fine, but see the lights come on there, and you know, Glenn's got a problem. He's got to get past the car in front, but he doesn't want to give up the lead doing it.
Tremendous job by David Parsons as a co-driver in this car. Comes out once a year, races Sandown and Bathurst. Has really worked on his fitness this year and is a lot fitter, and has really put this car in the position where it's in now. Taken over by Glenn Seaton after the pit stop, and now leads this race. And again, Lowndes behind him. Just a slight lock-up of brake, not to cause him any loss of time there. And they're chasing John Bowe, who's well down in 6th spot in the Shell FAI Falcon. Intriguing battle, this race, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. You know, these long distance races, you think, oh well, everything's pretty set right now, then all of a sudden something happens and the complexion of the race totally changes.
So a safety car following the off by Alan Grice in the Alan Jones car has really caused this situation. Seaton now threading his way through the slower cars. Lowndes still slotting in behind him. Bowe in the Johnson car. Laps down, but just in front of them.
It's a pity Bowe had that problem with the tyres early in the race, because that really moved him a lap down when they least could afford it. So, but right now it seems like he can really run a good pace. So as I say, it's a shame they had that problem, because they could have been a factor right now. But now we might have a challenge for the lead.
This is up the back straight. Difficult way to do it around the outside. Seaton moves across so he can't take advantage of the line. But Lowndes certainly tested him out across that back part of the circuit. They touch 253 kilometres per hour along there, so it's brave stuff.
Yeah, I thought Lowndes is just fishing around. He's just trying to find out where Glenn's a little weaker, where he can position his car to try and make the pass.
And you can see that Seaton's moved over, not to allow him any advantage in any of the experts, where the lines, corners and all that, but going to making a quick lap around Sandown.
You know, I'm sure Glenn's going to try and make him go around the outside, but here we go. Let's see what happens here.
Down the inside now. Can Craig Lowndes do it? They're on the main straight at Sandown. No, can't do it this time. Had a look down the inside, but Seaton still has got the power to match the HRT car. Both now pushing the dust on the outside. Again, another brake lock up from Seaton.
And with them behind Bowe like this, they've really slowed down. So, you know, as I say, Glenn is trying to really position the car so Craig can't get past, but at the same time, he's not being able to get past John Bowe. So it's kind of a stalemate, and Craig's having another look up the outside, but I think that's going to be a hard manoeuvre to take off that one.
Obviously, Lowndes gets out of NG corner a little better than Seaton, so gets the speed onto the straight, up the back straight, and now down to XR corner, and Johnson still, of course, leading this trio, which would be frustrating Seaton, because being the race leader, wants the clean air, wants to stay out in front and not be frustrated by someone who's laps down.
Yeah, that's right. But you know, John's just keeping his racing line here, and I just feel that he feels like his car's pretty fast right now, and if the leaders are fast enough to go up the inside, so be it. If they're not, well, that's their tough luck.
Well, you're right, because Bowe's still lapping in 1:14.8, so he's still in the 14, so he's got every right to be where he is. Seaton 15.2, Lowndes 15 dead that time around, and Peter Brock a 14.1. So even though he may have a brake problem in 05, he's still quick.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, because you know, if you're pumping the pedal like that, you know, particularly when you first get back into the car after the pit stops, it takes you a little while just to figure out, you know, what the car is doing and how you can overcome the problem that it has. When you're racing for the lead like Peter was when he first came out, it's very easy to get yourself into trouble, but probably now he's settled down, realised he's not going to win the race, and was able to drive around the problem and then do consistent laps again.
So it's still Glenn Seaton leading this race as he comes up behind John Bowe in Dick Johnson's car, and Craig Lowndes, the superstar in the supercar, the car they called the supercar when it was first built at the start of this year's Touring Car Championship, and he's certainly done it justice this weekend. Again, more lap traffic in front of them. Dillman, Cotter, Commodore. Then it's Bowe. 14.5 that time for Seaton. 14.6 that time for Lowndes. 15.4 for Brock. Perkins still quick too with a 14.9 lap time. Onto the main straight. Again, they'll touch better than 240 Ks. They'll hit 6th gear just in front of the grandstand. Then hard on the brakes for that big left-hand turn 1, which brought Lowndes undone last year.
Yes, well, it's very bumpy on the inside as you go into there, and even though you want to stick your nose down there and try and pass the car in front, you've got to compensate for the fact the car's jumping around a lot, and the car isn't going to stop as well as you really like, and you know, that can cause the cars a lot of problems. It's probably one of the reasons you don't see as much passing there as you would think.
Glenn Seaton doing a tremendous job under enormous pressure from Craig Lowndes in car number 1. Although didn't finish quite as high up in the Touring Car Championship as Seaton wanted to, had a reasonably competitive season, but was really looking forward to getting this new John Sidney engine in for these long-distance races. And you've seen what 630 horsepower can now do to this Ford Credit Falcon.
Well, they seem pretty evenly matched down the straight, so I don't think Lowndes is going to be able to just pull out and pass him. He's going to have to get a better run off the corner, get up, use the slipstream, get up alongside and outbrake him into the next corner.
Looking back through the field, you can see Longhurst still running in 4th spot, Larry Perkins 5th, Dick Johnson with Bow behind the wheel in 6th spot. So they're chasing the 6-spot car now. Stephen Johnson, Charlie O'Brien 7th, Gardner and Crompton 8th, Ashby and Reed, who'd now be your top privateers, next to Stephen Johnson anyhow, so running 2nd in the privateers Cup here at Sandown. Faulkner and Harrington, Jones and Bryce, of course, problems, and also the Scope Walden car went out earlier with gearbox failure, but is now back out on the track.
I'm sure Glenn sighed a great relief there, because John decided to move over and let the guys go past and battle it out on themselves.
Yes, good move from John Bow, very courteous, because he knew that ultimately he didn't have the lap speed, and let them catch up and move over, not to cause them too many dramas as they go through. So now that Seaton's got clean air ahead of him, can he maintain that 14.8, 14.9 lap time and keep Lowndes behind him? Through XR6 Ford versus Commodore. Two young guns. Seaton running his own team, so enormous responsibility that he has. And of course, Lowndes having the backing of the Holden Racing team and all the technology and experience that they have to offer. We'll give you the time from the laser technology speed gun as they cross the start-finish line with 30 laps to go in this 161-lap race. 242 kilometres per hour for Glenn Seaton.
Yeah, they're both on the same tyre, so I don't think Lowndes has got the luxury of just sitting there and wait for Seaton's tyres to go off, because they've got the same Bridgestone tyres on. So this is going to be a definite race to the finish.
Now, we saw how in the earlier session, after a number of laps, perhaps the shortened undertray situation on the Commodore came into play, and they started to lose some front downforce and understeer. Will that happen in this session, Jeff?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody was put in quite a difficult situation, because the Holden dealer team was so much quicker than everybody else. There was a move to try and slow them down, but you can't just pick a team out and penalise them for doing a very good job. So all the Holdens had to cop, this 125mm shortening of the front spoiler. But in reality, because the Holden dealer team are running Bridgestone tyres, they're probably least effective of all the Holden teams for that rule change. So I'm not sure that ultimately the effect that everybody was trying to get happened.
So, if you've just joined us for the Sandown 500 on Network 10 Sport, this is the battle, first and second after 132 laps. You've got Glenn Seaton leading Craig Lowndes. Ford versus Commodore. Through here in second or third gear, depending on the fuel load. Back to a second as they come up to NGK corner. Now let's sit this at around 110 kilometres per hour. They'll pull third, fourth, fifth. Ultimately, 6th gear up the back straight. Peak at around 253 Ks. It's actually the fastest part of the track across here, faster than the main straight at Sandown. And again, Seaton moves over to cover his line, so Lowndes can't get the advantage and tackle him under brakes.
That's a very difficult place to pass anyway, and I'm sure Glenn feels like as long as he doesn't let Craig get down the inside, he's pretty much got that section of the racetrack covered.
Sprint race distance around Sandown is some 18 laps, and this has really been a 161, or will be a 161 sprint race by the time they get to the finish. Both these drivers fresh. They've just come back into the cars after their final pit stop, or what we think will be their final pit stop, on their 133rd lap. And these cars and drivers are so evenly matched. You can hardly pick up, when you watch a lap, Jeff Brabham, any advantage from either car.
You just get the feeling that Craig is just a little bit quicker. If he got in front, he could probably just draw away. As you come out of the straight there, notice he pulls to his left, and I think that's more just to get the air to the brakes and to the radiator, so he's not stuck up behind Glenn's exhaust pipe for the whole time and getting the car too hot.
18 laps to go. And what would John Crennan, head of HRT Racing, be telling Lowndes now?
Well, I think he'd be saying, you know, call it, you've got the best car, just look for your opportunity. You know, we don't need to go crashing down and take both of you out. There's still quite a few laps to go. I think that Craig will eventually find a way through, but you know, right now he's just put the pressure on, hope that Glenn makes a mistake so it makes it easy for him.
Very mature drive from Lowndes, as we've seen all year, and has come back from a big crash in the Australian Touring Car Championship at Phillip Island to continue to dominate the series, to be the youngest ever driver to take the crown, and of course the youngest ever, or the only driver to take it in his first year of touring car racing.
Yes, as I was explaining before, you know, he's a young driver who certainly was in the right place at the right time with the Holden dealer team, and with Tom Walkinshaw, you know, involved with this team, plus many teams overseas. He's got a fantastic opportunity to take his career overseas and be successful at it. And you know, there hasn't been too many Australians lately who've had that opportunity, and I hope that he takes it, because it'd be great to see.
600 odd horsepower in these cars. They run through a 6-speed Hollinger gearbox with controlled ratios. They can change the diff ratios. Lowndes, I think, a little closer to Seaton this time around.
Yes, but you know, Glenn's just going up the left-hand side of the track there. He knows now that Lowndes isn't going to be able to make a move on him. So I think the areas there where Glenn probably be the most concerned would be at the end of the pit straight going into the first turn, because you know, Lowndes seems to get out onto the straight fairly well there, and there's definitely a hole there on the inside if he's brave enough to take it.
Well, I guess we'll see that as the laps unfold here at Sandown. But it's still Seaton in car 30. Co-driver David Parsons did a great job, but Seaton back in the car, and nothing between these two. They're on their 135th lap as Lowndes again has a look down the inside on the main straight. Has he got the grunt to do it? No, slots in behind Seaton. Gap maintains about the same.
Yeah, I think Craig's just moving around in Glenn's rear vision mirror there. He's not really close enough to make an attempt to a pass, but he's just moving around, you know, trying to make Glenn a little uneasy, hoping that he might make a mistake.
Both of them up on the ripple strips there. Flings the car up onto two wheels, settles down nicely. Both nicely balanced in the suspension, these cars.
Yeah, they seem to be. They seem to be able to ride the bumps and particularly the curves very well. And you know, that's quite an art to try and make a race car not only to go around the corners but not get too upset when it hits the curve.
26 laps to go in the Sandown 500. We're going to a break with a check of the top 5 placings. There is your great battle. Lowndes and Seaton, the pressure is on. They are a lap ahead of Peter Brock, who's working hard to stay involved. Then Longhurst and Perkins. Sandown 500 live and exclusive on Network 10, and there is the contest. Glenn Seaton under enormous pressure from the touring car champion of 1996, Craig Lowndes. There have been a couple of wobbles as Lowndes tries to find a hole the way to victory in this race. They are a lap clear of Peter Brock, well, almost a lap now, about 30 seconds ahead of Peter Brock, and then you've got Longhurst and Perkins, who are a lap down. Marvellous contest here. You would think it would be between those two, but anything can happen. We're on lap 139. Let's go to the pits.
And I'm right outside the Glenn Seaton pit where everyone is watching the monitors. With me is David Parsons, Glenn's co-driver. David, can Glenn keep this up for another 20 laps?
Yeah, I'd say about to keep it up. He's in a prime spot there, and just wait to see what happens. Like, the car is absolutely fantastic, so it's just a matter of let the race run its race.
Now, you're both on the same tyres, so I guess they don't come into the equation at all.
No, it's going to be exciting, and you know, I think they're just both pacing one another, and let's see what happens.
All right, thanks, Skippy. Let's go over to John Smales now at the other end of the battle.
Yeah, I'm at the other end of the pitch now with Greg Murphy. Greg, how are you feeling?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm glad it's Craig out there and not me trying to get past Glenn.
Well, can Craig do it?
Well, if anybody can, I think he probably can, and it's he's probably hope he's not thinking about the first few laps of last year's race, but it's at this stage it looks very similar. So he's just going to do his best, and the car's great, and then I think he can do it.
Well, motor racing is usually a noisy, brutal sport, but at both ends of the pits at the moment, people are walking on tiptoes, and you can hear a pin drop.
0.5 of a second between first and second, so it's still Seaton leading Lowndes. And we've got the Mike Conway, Miles Pope car off the track under the Shell Bridge, the bottom end of the track, so some kind of incident there. But back with your race leader, it's still Seaton leading Lowndes. Seaton, of course, has won this race twice. The first time 10 years ago exactly, when he was the youngest driver to win it at 21 years of age. Now 31 and a lot more experienced.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, Glenn's a tough nut out there, and he's certainly not going to just roll over and let Craig get past him. And it looks like Craig right now is either just taking a little bit of breather, collecting his thoughts, and getting himself ready for another run. And this battle's going to go right down to the wire.
Well, the action in this these two cars being watched on monitors back in the pits too. A lot of telemetry, electronic telemetry used to tell the teams back in the pits what's actually happening with the race cars.
Yes, you know, the teams have been monitoring the cars, you know, throughout the race, but listening to the co-drivers there, and this looks like the problem with the Miles Pope car. He gets in a little deep, just locks up the rear wheels, and away she goes.
Yeah, that's the Global G car of Pope and Conway. Spins it around, locked up the rears, coming into turn one at the end of the main straight, under brakes and loops it around, almost does a 360. And back now with your race leader, Seaton, car 30, still leading Lowndes in car 1. We've seen this battle now since the safety car came out after Alan Grice took his car off the track, hit the wall quite heavily, and you can see the, I think that's the Conway, no, I think that's the Scaife car. So problems too for the Mark Scaife car. So he's also gone off at the end of the main straight. Scaife, it looks like Noski back in the car, I think. Young Mark Noski, so problems there.
Well, we're getting towards the end of the race, and you know, maybe the car's brakes aren't quite as good now, and you're starting to see a few problems, you know, come up.
20 laps to go in the Sandown 500, and a tremendous battle between these two young guns. 31-year-old Glenn Seaton and Craig Lowndes, who's barely into his 20s, being the Australian Formula Ford champion. Hopes to pick up a European Formula 3000 drive next year with Tom Walkinshaw's team, possibly a Formula 1 test contract. You may remember earlier in the year we told you that Lowndes had signed a 10-year deal with Tom Walkinshaw. First time that's ever happened to an Australian driver. Yeah,
it's unbelievable, and certainly he's very fortunate, but also, you know, he's shown the speed and he deserves it. So, as I said before, there hasn't been too many Australians overseas lately. You know, my brother David sort of flying the flag, and certainly you've got Mark Webber now going over in Formula Ford in England. Jason Bright's trying to make a name for himself in America, and obviously a lot of publicity for Craig Lowndes. So hopefully there'll be a few Australians for us to barrack for in the future.
What's the strength in the Seaton team, Jeff? You drove for this team in 1993 and actually won this race in a Falcon. So what's the strength of their team? Always a very professional outfit.
Definitely, and you know, over the years they've just consistently run at the front, and you know, Glenn's a very good driver. I think he does a good job of setting the cars up. It's a pretty close-knit little team. They've been together for a long time, and they just do the little things right, and it shows up in their performances.
Lowndes now still looking down the outside of Seaton as they come up onto the straight that leads, or the corner that leads onto the main straight here at Sandown. And again, he's closed up. You may be right, Jeff. He may have taken a breather, let the brakes cool down a little, the tyres cool down a little, get himself focused for a challenge. And is it on this lap? Lowndes on the inside, down the main straight, not close enough to do it. So he had a really good look down the inside, but no, just not close enough to the back of Seaton's car.
No, you know, Glenn's got a very good engine in that car. I'm sure that when this race is over, whether he wins or loses, he's going to be very, very pleased with the engine performance, and that bodes well for when he goes to those long straights at Bathurst.
If you've just joined us, the Sandown 500 is reaching its conclusion. There are only 17 laps to go, and it's been a drama-packed third hour. Let's have a look at some of the action. The safety car was forced onto the track for the first time after this incident. A spin out by Alan Grice, taking his turn in the Alan Jones pack leader car. There it is, off the track in the Ford. Romano, who also has had his share of problems today, kept the pack leader team going. That car out of the race. The Lowndes Murphy team seemed to take advantage in that slow lap by taking a pit stop in a brilliant time of 19.2 seconds. It was the fastest of the day. But on the restart, Glenn Seaton in the Ford Credit Falcon made a brilliant move down the back straight and he hit the front. From there, he has stayed on top under heavy pressure from Craig Lowndes, but that is where the race has been. Stand by for a dramatic finish in the 500.
So still this tremendous battle up front between Glenn Seaton as he comes up to lap the Ashby Reed Commodore and Lowndes. And these two have really been at it hammer and tongs over the past 10 or 15 laps, and Seaton withstanding a lot of pressure from Lowndes. I think the last 10 laps in this race is really going to be something.
Yeah, it certainly is, because that's money time, and I'm sure that you know, if Craig Lowndes sees any sort of a hole in the last couple of laps, he's going to go for it.
It appears that Seaton has his speed, though. You mentioned before, Jeff, about how much horsepower this car is turning out. Around 630 horsepower, they're saying, from this new John Sidley engine. What sort of power to the Holden Racing Team Commodore?
Well, that's difficult to say. I mean, everybody's very secretive about you know, their performances. If they tell you a figure, that's not necessarily the correct one. But you can see the whole dealer team, I don't know, I think they'd be a little concerned about their horsepower, because looking at it throughout the day, they've never seemed to be the quickest car down the straightaway.
And of course that comes into play significantly at Bathurst.
Well, certainly, definitely, and you know, they've obviously got the best handling car. They've got good driver combinations, but you need everything to win. And right now, when unforeseen things happen, like the pace car comes out, you lose the lead, and you get stuck behind a car that's very nearly up to your performance, but a little quicker down the straight, you can get stuck behind it and end up losing the race.
You can still see that Seaton's under pressure. I mean, there's a little wiggle of the tail there as he came up to NGK, a little puff of smoke from both the left and front coming into the S's there, so he's actually on the limit. I mean, he can't be pushed much further.
Definitely not. He's driving that car as hard as he possibly can, and you know, the only time that he can sort of take a little bit of a breather is like right now, when he's got about 3 or 4 car lengths, so he knows that this particular lap he's under no real threat, so he can just take a breather and get ready for the onslaught, because I'm sure it's about to happen.
Both these cars have done stops without a brake pad change. A lot of the cars, the quick ones particularly, are running Japanese pads that are worth $4,000 each if you want to put them on the front of your car, or $4,000 to equip the front of the car. So enormous amount of money in this business, but to get from start to finish without a pad stop over 161 laps, you've got to pay the money.
Well, that's true, and you know, these guys are definitely not saving them right now. You know, the Peter Brock's car apparently has a little bit of a problem, but these two definitely don't have any problems, and that bodes well for them for Bathurst, because they do try and set up the brakes so they can get through even Bathurst without a pit stop to change brakes. So hopefully this race will show them how much pad wear they've got, and but right now it seems like there's no problem for brakes.
So you've got Peter Brock back in 3rd spot, Longhurst in the 4th, a good run to be 4th, Perkins 5th, Dick Johnson and John Bowe hanging in there in 6th spot in their Falcon, Gardner and Crompton 7th, Stephen Johnson with Charlie O'Brien back in 8th spot, then it's the Trevor Ashby Stephen Reed car. Good effort from them too to be the first privateers in the top 10. Romano and Madecki still travelling around, so is Dumsey and Bailey, and Kendrick and McCarthy well down. On their 147th lap of 161 laps around Sandown. Ford have won this event 9 times, Commodore 12 times. Peter Brock certainly has been the most successful driver here, won it 9 times, 7 times in succession, which is really an unbelievable feat.
Well, it is when you're talking about long-distance races. You know, there's so many things that can go wrong, and particularly back when Peter ran it. I think the cars today in the 90s are a lot more reliable than they were in the 70s and beginning of the 80s, so that's a tremendous feat.
14 laps to go, so this race really winding down. But the battle has really been from start to finish between Ford and Commodore. Although this car number 1, led the early stages, the second round of pit stops and the safety car has really changed the total complexity of this race. And Seaton is still under enormous pressure from Lowndes, but just doing a great job. What goes through a driver's mind, Jeff? I mean, you've obviously been in this situation.
Well, I think you just try and calm yourself down. You know what you've got to do to try and stay in front. Your biggest problem is not making a mistake, and if you can just when you're going around, you're sort of in your mind, you know where he's stronger than you are, you know where you can beat him out of the corner, so you've just got to just take care of business, because if eventually he gets past you, well, there's nothing you can do about it, but you certainly don't make it easy for him.
Let's watch the run onto the main straight this time around. You saw that Lowndes was a lot closer going through XR corner, and much closer this time too. So onto the main straight. Again, will Seaton have enough grunt to hold him out? Lowndes certainly quicker through the twisty bits. In the slipstream now.
You see, this time Lowndes stay right behind him. He isn't moving out early, and he's trying to... No, it doesn't look like he's going to do it. That Seaton car definitely has a lot of horsepower and is very fast down the straight.
And Lowndes went to the outside there. Has now looked down the inside. Can I work Seaton over from this side of the track? But Seaton, no, moves across to cover him. What a fantastic motor race. Both cars up on two wheels as they clip the curves there, placing enormous strength on these cars too. They don't break. 15 laps to go, and again Lowndes quicker up the back straight. We've seen before he's been quicker over this part of the track.
Yeah, and he's definitely in attack mode now. I think he's decided that there's 15 laps to go. He's had enough. He wants to get to the front.
Lowndes right up on the back of Seaton again. Quicker through this part of the track than the Ford Credit Falcon, but forced to slot in behind again under brakes as they go down through the XR corner. Back to second gear through here. Putting more and more pressure on Seaton as these laps wind down here at Sandown. Neither will give in, and I would imagine if they're still in this situation on the last lap, Jeff, it'll be one hell of a lap to watch.
It certainly will, and hopefully that's the situation, because it's all coming down to the end, and if we're like calling this race and this is happening on the last 5 or 6 laps, I think it's going to be very entertaining.
Great racing here at Sandown in the 500. Craig Lowndes trying every tactic he can think of to get past Glenn Seaton, and time is running out. Brock, Longhurst and Perkins make up the top 5, but it's between those two. Seaton and Lowndes will be back. 9 laps to go, and Craig Lowndes is running out of ideas as well. Craig Denyer, what a contest.
What a contest, almost 3 hours, 15 minutes down too, so they've been hard at it, and Jeff Brabham winding down to this race. We talked about what would be going through Glenn Seaton's mind. What would be going through Craig Lowndes' mind now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think he's starting to run out of ideas. He's tried left, he's tried right, he's tried to force Glenn into a mistake. I think the only option left to him now is over the top or underneath.
161 laps, 9 laps to go, and it's winding down, and Seaton appears to be able to pull out a gap, or Lowndes lets him pull out a gap so he can refocus, regroup, cool the tyres down, whatever, for another challenge. But the gap pulls out to 5 or 6 car lengths, and then within an instant they're almost nose to tail again.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you could wonder whether or not Lowndes, when he gets right up behind, starts to lose the brakes or not, because he does tend to make a very stiff challenge and then fall back, take a deep breath, and then come back at him again.
Brake temperature, a very important part in Group A touring car racing. 8 laps to go as they cross the start-finish line here at the Sandown 500. Brake temperature around 700, 800 degrees centigrade, so they get very hot.
Well, it's not that, they've all got the cooling going to the brakes, so they should stay fairly consistent. It's just that when the pad starts to get well worn like they are right now, you have a little bit of trouble with the pads not wearing exactly square. So when you get on your foot onto the brake pedal, the brake pedal becomes very long and it becomes very inconsistent. And particularly when you're in a situation like this, where you're really scratching to get that last little bit to try and stay out in front, brakes start to become a big factor.
And it's not necessarily how hot the brakes get, but it's how quickly you cool them down that makes them effective.
Well, Sandown has fairly long straights, so they do cool down, but I think they're plenty hot right now because these guys are standing on them.
And look at Lowndes now, closer this time again to Glenn Seaton in the Ford Credit Falcon. So this is first and second, the battle for the outright lead in the Sandown 500 after 3 hours of motor racing. Tremendous stuff. Onto the main straight again, laps winding down. And again, the power of that John Sidney racing engine, 630 horsepower, unleashed on the main straight, and Craig Lowndes can't do anything about it.
No, not right now. It's a bit like the Larry Perkins situation at the beginning of the race, where he was holding that long queue of cars behind him. He was quick down the straight, had good brakes, and Sandown is a very difficult place to overtake, and I think that we're seeing that right now.
A lot of high-speed corners at Sandown, and enormous top speeds as well. 6-speed gearboxes in these cars, and they're really working them now. Australian-built Hollinger gearboxes.
Yeah, and they're the same gearboxes we use in the BMWs as well. It's fantastic gearbox, very easy to use. It's very difficult to make miss shifts. So, that's not going to be a factor in this race. I think those guys are caning the gearbox, the engines, the brakes, everything's getting the maximum. As Glenn gets a little bit wide there, and he's going to have to cover his line going into the next corner, which he does.
Okay, again as they come once more time, very shortly onto the main straight. Lowndes closer to Seaton, so nothing between these two. And you can see that Seaton every so often locks the brakes, so he's under enormous pressure, doesn't get the car sideways, so his brake pedal feel and balance is just sensational.
Yeah, certainly, and he's getting the maximum out of the race car, and I think he knows where Craig's more likely to make that passing move, and when he gets into the other areas of the track where he feels like he's got it covered, he can just back off a little bit on the brakes and just take care of it and really punish him where he needs to.
6 laps to go, so the laps are really winding down here at Sandown. Again, they clip the inside of the curve up onto 2 wheels, doesn't unsettle the car. Suspension set up to take this kind of punishment. Over 161 laps here at Sandown, and Lowndes must be feeling very, very frustrated. I can't quite get there, but I know I can, but I just can't quite get there.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation to be in because you know you've got the faster car, you know really should have won the race, but here we go. The yellow flag comes out, the other car gets in front, and then you can't do anything about it. But the race is certainly not over yet. There's still quite a few laps to go, and I'm sure that he's going to make a move somehow.
Tremendous battle too when you think that when Glenn Seaton entered this scene some years ago, he was the young gun. That was 10 years ago. Won this race in 1986, and now the new young gun, the guy that hasn't won it but desperately wants a win. Craig Lowndes is challenging for the lead. Memories of last year will be going through Lowndes. I can't take any risks. I know what happened last year when I tried to pass Glenn Seaton. I don't want to do it again. I got 5 laps to go and do it in.
I'm not sure he's thinking about that right now. All he's trying to do is figure out how to get past him. And I think as the laps wind down and things will get a little bit more hectic, and I'm sure Craig's going to be willing to make that desperate move somewhere.
It's been a tremendous drive from Glenn Seaton, though. I mean, to withstand this kind of pressure and not put a foot wrong over so many laps takes an enormous amount of concentration. Lap time still in the 14s, 14.9 for Seaton, 14.8 for Lowndes, and 14.8 for Brock. So Brock still in 3rd spot, Longhurst 4th, Perkins back in 5th.
Yes, these 3 cars, the 2 Holden dealer teams and Glenn Seaton, they've really been head and shoulders above everybody else, and they're certainly giving us a great race.
So they're on their 157th lap, and again Seaton moves over to cover the inside line, not give Lowndes an advantage, but Lowndes still almost tapping the rear bumper bar of Glenn Seaton's Ford. We might see a little bit more of that over the next lap or 2.
Well, I think Craig's going to give him a few hits just to let him know that he's very sideways out of there, and he's almost got up alongside. Yes, I think he has. This is going to be, I think, a pass for the lead.
Let's watch them as they go down the main straight. Lowndes alongside. This is the best position he's been in the last 10 laps. Can he take it on the inside? Seaton is outside struggling. Lowndes has done it. So Craig Lowndes in car number 1 has gone through to regain the lead. Listen to the crowd here at Sandown. Tremendous move, and you can see that started with 4 laps to go on the entry to the main straight.
Well, that was a great move, and it shows that Craig was being patient. He was prepared just to wait there. He didn't try anything stupid. He got a good run out on the straightaway and was able to get his car in the right position on the racetrack and make a really clean pass.
So the Holden fans are cheering like you wouldn't believe here at Sandown as they again thread their way through the slower cars. And Lowndes, as you said, very, very, I guess, showing an enormous amount of maturity and in waiting for the time where he thought was right, planned it well, knew where he was quicker than Seaton, and it might have taken 10 or 12 laps to do it, but did it very well.
Yeah, very impressive performance. He could have easily given Glenn a tap or get himself in a position where they takes both of them out, but he just waited and waited and waited, and eventually the opportunity came.
Ron Harrop there, who's the team consulting engineer for the Holden Racing team, still looking as the crowd roar as they cross the line with 3 laps to go here at Sandown. They're on their 159th lap now as the current Australian Touring Car champion, Craig Lowndes, and Greg Murphy, his co-driver, done a great job to put this car back in the lead after a safety car incident which allowed the team to close up and Seaton to go through. But he's now been pushed back to 2nd place. Brock still 3rd. Longhurst, Perkins, Johnson and Gardner round out the top 7. Greg Murphy, how is he feeling? You can see the tension.
Yeah, he's probably got the worst position right now because there's nothing you can do about it. You've done your job, now you've just got to sit in the pits and watch and just hope that the car comes home in first place so you can end up on the victory roster as the winners.
I reckon his fingernails will be just about bitten down to the knuckles by the time this race is finished. But he's done a great job, and these two will be a very formidable combination at Bathurst. Neither had won Bathurst, but Lowndes put this car on pole position last year, as he did at Sandown. Didn't go on to win the race when both Brock and Lowndes' car had similar problems and were out after about 18 laps, but they're looking a lot stronger now.
Well, now, I think it was very important for this team to do well here because they did have a few disasters last year in the long distance races. They've dominated all year. The only two races really that they haven't won recently are these two, and it looks like Craig's on his way to win this one, and I'm sure it's going to give them a lot of confidence when they go into Bathurst.
You can see now that Lowndes has pulled out 2 or 3, maybe 5 car lengths on Seaton, who's hanging in there. So again, the car speed between these two very similar, but Lowndes has done a 1:14.36, Seaton a 1:14.47. So over the next, well, they're on their last lap now, so one would imagine that won't change.
Well, no, I mean, Craig's got to be a little bit careful now. He's done the job, he's got in front, and he shouldn't let his guard down too much because if he just makes the slightest mistake, Glenn's going to be right back at him, which he is right now.
So on lap 160, which in actual fact is their second last lap as they come through Exarch Corner, down towards the Dunlop Bridge, lights on in the Mobil HRT Commodore. Great effort from Bridgestone tyres to be 1, 2 and 3 in this race, and you can still see Lowndes is pushing it hard. Slight brake lock up there, not enough to lose him any time.
Well, he has to push hard because Glenn's still right there. Glenn hasn't given up for 1 minute, and he's hoping that he can just get close enough and put a little bit of pressure on Craig during the last lap and see what happens.
And the crowd roar as Craig Lowndes goes past the start-finish line on his last lap. We'll take you with him as he goes around. Car number 1, bang up on the curbs, and bang up on the curbs again. Sensational drive from this guy, and of course the guy that will finish behind him, Glenn Seaton, barring no last lap problems in the Ford credit car. But a sensational job from Craig Lowndes, and he'll go now back to Europe in 2 weeks' time, or after Bathurst, with even more confidence, Jeff Craven.
Well, certainly, it's a snowballing effect, you can get into one of those rhythms where you just can't do anything wrong, and certainly Craig's in that right now.
Well, Peter Brock has been the only man to have won the Australian Touring Car Championship, Sandown and Bathurst, all in the same year in 1978 and 1980. Can Craig Lowndes do it again? He's won the Touring Car title. It now looks like he's about to take his first Sandown 500. Bathurst is yet to come. Lowndes now with Seaton, not that far behind, comes onto the main straight for the last time, gives them a sensational victory. What a great effort. After 161 laps, Craig Lowndes takes the checkered flag in the Sandown 500. Glenn Seaton second. Peter Brock will come across the line to be third. Longhurst fourth. And how would he be feeling on the slow down lap, Jeff?
Well, I think he'd be feeling very, very happy. They had the dominant car all weekend, but the way that the race panned out, they really had to work for it. And I think he'd be very, very happy.
The Connor Dillman car comes through as well, so there's no doubt about it. I think you'll find this is the Peter Brock Commodore. It'll come across the line in third spot. There's Ron Harrop very happy. Certainly Greg Murphy very happy. Jeff Gretsch very happy. And Craig Lowndes has the checkered flag out for his very first Sandown win in what has been an awesome display.
Well, it has, and what a great race. We had 3 dominant cars throughout the weekend, and they went after it during the race. Peter Brock had a few little problems, slipped back, and in the end had some brake problems. So instead of 3 cars, it was 2 cars at the end. But you couldn't have asked for a better race than that.
Certainly been the form team all year. Won the Australian Touring Car Championship in this car, called the Supercar, and has gone on to win Sandown, and will now have to go to Bathurst. Very much the favourite. Even though the front undertrays on the Commodores have been shortened by some 125 mils, it certainly doesn't appear to have slowed down Lowndes' effort this weekend.
No, it definitely hasn't slowed that team down. And I think, as I said before, the Bridgestone tyres really helps that situation, and maybe some of the other cars who are not running those will have a little bit more problem with that ruling. But Craig Lowndes doing a bit of a burn out there for the crowd, and obviously very excited about winning here today.
And there's your third place getter, Peter Brock. He finished only 38 seconds behind, so 1, 2 and 3 only separated by 38 seconds. And I'd say he'd be fairly relaxed about that now.
Well, I think he'd be feeling reasonably pleased, because I think that going into Bathurst, I think he's got a very good team with Thomas Mazera. You know, they had a few hiccups today, but they're strong, and looking forward to the...
Look at Lowndes.
Yeah.
Look at Lowndes now
He's
as he
having
lights
some
up the
fun
car on the main straight. Now down to Leaf Manifold.
I'm with a very excited Greg Murphy here. Greg, you're just about off the moon with this.
Oh, I'm over the moon, all right. It's just the best feeling in the world.
Craig drove brilliantly in those last few laps. I mean, he didn't put a foot wrong, and when the position was there, he went for it.
Oh, it's almost like I think he had it planned. I mean, I'm going to have to have a word to him about that, because he's made all our hearts go crazy. So he's done a great job, and the car, the team, just everything went so well today, and we're really happy.
And Brocky got a third as well.
He had a few problems. That's a real shame, because you know, him and Thomas have been driving great, and they've had a little bit of bad luck. But you know, to be first and third on the podium is fantastic.
Well, you probably want to get down there and shake Craig's hand. So off you go, mate.
Yeah, thanks.
Very excited, Greg Murphy. And look at Craig Lowndes. His first Sandown 500. Takes a drink, and he'd be feeling, I think, fairly relieved. And look at the mateship between these two. Walks up, shakes the hands of his adversary, Glenn Seaton, who finished only just behind him, Howard Marsden. And there's no doubt about it, it'd be a great feeling amongst this team now.
Lovely to see a young bloke like that with so much talent, so much of a future, and a charming young man. Pleased, excited, giving the crowd what they want. Been a grand win for the whole team. He, of course, is very much part of it. Glenn, I think, showed a super amount of opportunism after that yellow flag that pulled everybody together, really thought about what he had to do, and really Glenn made the race for us. We must say the win went to the Holden, but the Ford did a super job.
So there's no doubt about it, there's probably no other touring car driver that's made such an impact on Australian motor racing since perhaps the days of Peter Brock and Alan Moffat.
Yes, he's definitely the man of the late 90s, and I think we do see this face coming through. We're going to see it internationally, obviously. The lad's got what it takes.
So Craig Lowndes still shaking hands with all those that have supported his efforts, and we'll be back with a presentation very shortly, live from the Sandown 500 in Melbourne.
The winners embrace Craig Lowndes and Greg Murphy. What a drive, what a Sandown 500. Let's go to the podium now, the presentation with John Smales.
Ladies and gentlemen of Sandown, would you please welcome, before you welcome the worthy winners, the promoter of the Sandown International Motor Raceway, Mr. John Davison.
Thank you very much indeed, John. Well, I don't know what to say, ladies and gentlemen. I'm absolutely delighted to be the promoter of the Tickford 500. To me, it doesn't matter who won it, because it was a fantastic motor race, won by a brilliant team who beat an equally brilliant team. And that's what a great television coverage is all about. And the crowd absolutely love it, and it's great for motorsport, and I'm very proud, Jono, to be associated with Network 10.
John, you deserve every accolade, because this has been a sensational motor race. Let's first have the guys who came third, Peter Brock and Thomas Mazera.
Well, I suppose all things being equal, we're pretty happy to finish third, because we had a bit of a struggle with a couple of little things, but debut of a new car, extremely strong result for Mobile Holden Racing Team, and I'd have to say that Thomas and I have certainly got a glint in our eye come that big race in 4 weeks' time. But look, our friends at Bridgestone and all our sponsors, thank you very much for your assistance. It's really been a fabulous effort. Thomas?
Yeah, we had little problems, but we come back much stronger next month, and hopefully I can help Peter to get his 10th at Bathurst.
Good on you, lads. Peter Brock and Thomas Mazera. Now, you couldn't pick between first and second, could you? But let's give it now the huge Sandown hand to the people who came second, Glenn Seaton and David Parsons. Come on down there. Glenn, tell us, what was going through your mind in those final laps with that Holden Racing Team car breathing down your neck?
Really, I just tried to push as hard as I could and try and hold the lead, but I made a little bit of a mistake coming onto the straight, and that was enough for Craig to get alongside me, but fantastic. I think the fans really can't go home disappointed with this, because it was a great race and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, so congratulations to Craig and also Greg.
Glenn, have you ever had a closer race, that close to the finish of a major event like the Sandown 500?
No, not really, but like I say, we worked pretty hard today, and so did Holden Race Team. So this stage we go away from here with being, I think, very encouraged for Bathurst. And I'd just like to say thank you to my sponsors, which is Ford Credit, the Bridgestone Tyre Centres, Mobil Oils and Bridgestone Tyres, and also to my partner who did a brilliant job today, Skippy.
Indeed. Well done. David, this year is Glenn Seaton's Bathurst, is it not?
Well, we've done a fantastic job, with the car and the fellas, and I was very, very proud to when Glenn asked me to run with him at Bathurst last year for this year, and a bit of confidence, and I think we're looking really good for Bathurst, and the time's my turn.
Well done. To second place, Glenn Seaton and David Parsons. Well, the time has come, hasn't it, Sandown crowd? There's a new era in Australian motorsport, and its name is Craig Lowndes with Greg Murphy. And to present the two guys with their trophy for the Tickford 500 for this year is David Flint, Managing Director of Tickford Vehicle Engineering. David?
Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be involved in this race. It was a fantastic motor racing. Well, yeah, Holden won, and the best team won on the day. Driving was superb. I've got to say thanks to John Davison and the crew here. You must agree it's a most amazingly organised meeting. Put your hands together, please, for John Davison and the organisation of this group. And now, I've got to say it is with some joy I give the first prize to HRT, the best team on the day.
Get Jeff. Jeff!
Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can't hog, get up.
Come on, Jeffrey. Okay. Coming up to join the guys is Jeff Gretsch, team manager of the Holden Racing Team. But come through, Craig, because we've got to talk to you. Craig, those last few laps were just a sensation. Those last few laps were just a sensation. Did you think you could do him? Did you always have it in your mind that he was beatable?
Oh, for sure, otherwise we wouldn't be out there. The pace car didn't play into our hands at all. I managed to go out there in front of Glenn, but right in front. We didn't have our 28 or whatever the second gap we had, and we just had to fight hard, and I know his tyres were going off like mine, and I'd like to thank Greg Murphy. He's done a tremendous job. He gave me back the car in the same way as I give him. I'd like to thank the guys, all our sponsors, Mobil, Bridgestone. It's just been a fantastic car, and hope we can go on to win Bathurst.
Not a bad year for the young man, is it? Greg Murphy, come on in. Just a sensational race. What's he like to drive with?
Oh, he's a prick. No, he's a great guy. Craig's just incredible. I mean, way he handled that out there then, and it was just amazing. And I can't say more about him. But it takes a team to do it. And these guys over here, these boys, they're the ones that did it for us, and without them, we wouldn't have had such a fantastic car today. Our HRT Mobil Commodore was just the best thing.
Let's get the man up here who's engineered this whole thing, Jeff Gretsch from Tom Walkinshaw Racing, Holden Racing Team. Jeff, what's it take to keep these two young lions under control?
It takes a team that's out in front here. Without them all, the way they work and the way they put in, we wouldn't be here. And really, I don't want to work for any other team bar them.
Well done. Well, folks, give a big round of applause to all three on the dais at this moment, because they've all done an absolutely sensational job. As the champagne squirts, and you're away with the Sandown.
Miles caught in the Champagne crossfire. However, why not? What a marvellous performance from Craig Lowndes and the entire Holden team. First and third here at the Sandown 500, continuing their domination of Group A's this year. The big one, of course, is still to come. For a little while, Glenn Seaton had his hand on that trophy. However, what a great drive from a man who has a very, very big future in motor racing. We'll come back as the crowd very much enjoying this popular win here at Sandown to wrap it all up for you very shortly. Fantastic finish to the Sandown 596. Craig Lowndes did it with just a couple of laps to go. Did you think, Jeff Brabham, that he could do it?
Well, I always thought there was a chance. He's been the dominant car all weekend, and certainly in that position where he's right behind Glenn Seaton, he had a chance to do it. But what a great race. You know, Glenn Seaton drove a fantastic race, withstood a lot of pressure over those last couple of laps and very nearly brought it home.
Well, the worst thing for me was I was just moving out of the commentary box and into this position here as the manoeuvre took place. I saw it live just in front of me, but tell us how he did it.
Well, basically, Craig got a better run onto the straight, managed to get the car on the inside to prevent Glenn from coming down and blocking his move, and made a pretty clean pass in the end. I think Craig showed a lot of maturity because he was prepared to be patient and wait for that opportunity to happen, and eventually it did.
Well, as Howard and yourself and Craig Denyer pointed out, he seemed to be very frustrated there towards the end because he seemingly had tried everything going inside and out, but in the end he pulled it off.
Yeah, he did, and even though I'm sure he was frustrated, he was able to control that, and I think it shows that Craig Lowndes has got a very big future in front of him.
Well, as you can see behind us too, whether they've generated it in the past season or whether it's been here for a long time, but a very popular win to Holden.
Well, it was, but it was a popular win period just because it was such a great race, and I think if Glenn won it too, you know, everyone would have been just as equal as excited, but the crowd here are pumped up. They just saw a great motor race.
What do you think of the future of Craig Lowndes? We know he's going overseas and there are a lot of things opening up for him now.
Well, there is. I mean, he has probably the best opportunity any Australian has had since Alan Jones, really, to really not only get to Formula 1, because my brother David also made it to Formula 1, but I think Craig's got an opportunity to maybe make it with a good team, and that's going to make a very big difference. And I hope he does, because you know, Australians I'm sure would love to see someone out there racing in Formula 1 or Indy cars or whatever that they could really cheer for.
Well, we know John Smales and Leith Manifold are getting ready to deliver some interviews in the pits, but what is the process from here? We know things are being prepared for Craig, but what is the sort of process from here, or there are many avenues for him?
Well, it's difficult to say. Obviously, he's tied up with Tom Walkinshaw, and that's probably the best thing that could happen for him, because Tom has access, obviously, not only to the Formula 1 team that he's running, but access to money, and really when it comes down to, that's the key, and that's where Australians have typically had a lot of problems overseas, that they haven't been able to raise the capital here in Australia to go overseas and race. Maybe with Tom Walkinshaw behind him, they can access some avenues somewhere else and pick up that necessary finance he needs.
On the other hand, I'm not sure if that was a tear or two welling in Glenn Seaton's eye when he received his trophy, but that must have been very tough for him to lose it late.
Well, it was, but I think he'd be very happy. You know, going into Bathurst, he has a strong package. It showed that the two Holden dealer teams, plus him, were really the class of the field. And you know, when you go to Bathurst with a much greater, longer race, then anything can happen in that. And I'm sure he feels he has a real good shot at that.
Okay, as we wait for word from the pits, before we're swamped, let's have an update of the race now and give you a story briefly of how it all went this afternoon. There were several distinct phases. In fact, there was drama before even the start of the event. Mark Larkham lost his power steering during the warm-up lap. Lots of problems there, and of course the 10 cameras inside that car as it all happened. Then race favourite Craig Lowndes, as you can see, jumped out. He, of course, won the top 10 shootout the day before, was clearly the quickest. In fact, there were 3 seconds between the first and the 10th drivers out of yesterday's top 10 shootout. His lead blew out to 17 seconds early in the race. The highlight, however, was behind him. A battle for second between Perkins, whose tyres were starting to go, but he was holding out Seaton, Gardner and Longhurst. It was a terrific battle. The big mover was Peter Brock. He left the track in qualifying, missed the top 10 shootout, started in 13th place on the grid. He moved up to 3rd place until, of course, this fateful spin out on lap 45, which knocked him back to 6th position in the race. There it was. Not quite the same incident as when he landed on the beach in qualifying. The Commodore of Craig Lowndes and Greg Murphy still had a commanding lead. Lowndes handed the wheel to Murphy, who did extremely well after lap 59. That pit stop was 21 seconds. In fact, the crew can really congratulate each other for a marvellous effort today in the pits. The combination did not lose any of their lead. The 05 meantime had moved back into third spot. Some brilliant driving by Thomas Mazera this time, maintaining the pace in that second Commodore. He burnt the track up with some of the best lap times of the day. Bad luck though for the M3 Motorsport team, Dillman and Cotter. They had trouble early in the race, broke a gear stick, and then this runoff finished the day for them. Into the third hour now. The pace car came out when Alan Grice left the track in Alan Jones's car. That was the middle section. In fact, Jonesy never got that second drive. Here it is now. Gricey left on the side and the pace car came out, which compressed the leaders. The Lowndes-Taylor team seemed to stop. The Lowndes-Murphy team, I should say, seemed to take advantage. They took their pit stop then, and that was the fastest of the day, 19.2 seconds. But of course, they found themselves trailing Glenn Seaton, who made a brilliant manoeuvre just after the restart. And then the battle resumed. Brock had some more problems which pushed him further back. In fact, he was about 32 seconds down, leaving the conclusion to these two drivers. Glenn Seaton made the move early, but Craig Lowndes made the move on lap 152nd, just when it counted. Took control, won the Sandown 500, and what a win it was. A very popular one. And I think we should go back to the pits right now. No, we're not quite ready to rejoin John Smales and Leith Manifold. We will, though, when we come back after this break. And John Smales is with me right now. We said how quick Craig Lowndes has been all weekend, but even quicker than we thought, John.
Well, indeed, Bill. It's a new race record, and it's not just a small race record either. He's taken a full 5.5 minutes off the previous best time set last year by John Bowe. So it's a 3 hours and 25-minute race. We've never seen anything like that.
Well, amazing in context. Here are the final placings. John, you might want to take us through them and some of the performances that impressed you.
Oh, the performance that impressed me, look at the number one, Lowndes and Murphy. Those two guys are absolute heroes. Then Seaton and Parsons, of course, Brock and Mazera we've looked at. But don't forget the work of Tony Longhurst and young Steve Ellery. Now, is Steve Ellery the Rookie of the Year, the find of the future? You bet he is. Then, of course, Perkins and Ingle. Then Johnson and Bowe back in 6th place. Surprisingly, 2 laps down, Gardner and Crompton, who at least got to a finish, and it's the first finish that Neil Crompton's had in some 4 years here at Sandown. So it's really good. And only his 3rd finish in 8 starts at the race meeting. As you go right back through the field, Scaife and Walden with, of course, Noski as well in the field, and that was pretty good. Richards and Richards were people who could have done a lot better, but for that prang that young Stephen had yesterday. And right back in final position, the Steniken and Brown car, a failure to finish.
Well, unlike Craig Lowndes, we're running out of time here at the Sandown 500, but we will give you a quick idea what's coming up on Network 10. Superbikes tonight, Indy cars tomorrow. It's a very busy program. On behalf of the entire 10 commentary team, thanks for joining us this afternoon.